Pull your cloak tighter against the damp. Out here, the night doesn't forgive a careless mind. Out past the breakwater of the Tsushima Strait, the tide has forgotten how to ebb. The local fishermen pulled their skiffs high onto the gravel hours ago. Nobody lets timber touch water on the 16th night of Obon. A suffocating reek of rotting kelp and cold, rusted iron hangs frozen in the damp air. These are the haunted waters of Japan, the home of the Funayūrei, the ship ghosts of the deep. You notice the silence first. It settles in your ears like wet wool. The gulls fled the basalt cliffs long before dusk, leaving their nests empty in the dark. The wind died, yet the deck beneath our boots shudders as if something massive is leaning against the keel.
Dull, phosphorescent green light pulses beneath the Black Sea, outlining the shattered ribs of forgotten sunken ships. Whatever is rising through the fog doesn't care about wind or current. It glides across the dead water without leaving a single wake. Old mariners in the ports of Nagasaki knew better than to strike a match when the ocean turned black as pitch. The wet, dragging scrape of waterlogged fabric glides slowly across the rough pine deck. Look closely at the starboard rail. The line between the living and the dead is wearing thin tonight. The sea isn't just water anymore. It's an unpaved graveyard holding 800 years of restless souls. They have no graves on land, no family to speak their names, and no peace in the abyss. Slick, glistening tracks of sea slug slime leave glowing silver trails across the damp cedar planks.
To understand why this water is so heavy, you have to look back to the spring of 1185. In the narrow currents of Dan-no-ura, the entire Taira clan chose the bottom of the sea over the shame of enemy chains. Warriors clad in heavy iron armor, noble women in silk, and the child emperor Antoku leaped together into the crushing waves. The sharp, metallic tang of salt spray mixes with the heavy smell of wet, rusting feudal armor. For centuries, local crews avoided the jagged reefs near Shimonoseki. They knew the seafloor was littered with unburied bones. When a sailor dies a violent death in the ocean, without family to perform the mortuary rites of Kuyo, the soul corrupts. It becomes a mwendoke, a restless, unmoored spirit with no living kin left to tend its memory. The hollow, rhythmic slap of stagnant water strikes relentlessly against the motionless hull. In 1743, official administrative logs from Kyushu recorded a ghost story written in official ink. A merchant junk was found drifting off the northern coast of Tsushima under full sail, completely intact. When boarding parties climbed over the rail, they found the vessel flooded to the deck line with cold seawater. Yet the entire crew was gone, vanished without a single sign of a fight. Hundreds of bottomless bamboo ladles floated motionless in the quiet black water surrounding the abandoned ship. Popular theater paints these spirits as pale, beautiful phantoms dressed in white silk. But the maritime archives of Nagasaki record a far uglier truth. They call them the Soko-Yūrei, the bottom-dwelling ghosts who crawl out of the deep ocean mud. Bloated, waterlogged bodies encrusted with razor-sharp barnacles, weeping thick black bile into the waves. Decades in the salt brine dissolve their eyes, leaving them completely blind to the world of light. They cannot see your lanterns or the outline of your sails. Instead, they hunt purely by sound, by the acoustic friction of wood scraping against water. The low, raspy creak of an oak rudder cutting through a current echoes sharply across the mist.
The moment your oar turns in its wooden rowlock, the sound travels through the deep like a struck bell. 6 or more naked, barnacled corpses drag themselves up the hull, screaming "Yah, Yah" in a wet, discordant chorus. Their collective spiritual weight pins the vessel in place, a state of total paralysis called ugugonaku. A low, bubbling hiss of trapped air escapes from waterlogged cedar logs beneath the deck.
Back in 1779, the scholar Hori Bakusui wrote down the secret defenses in the Sanshu Kidan. Old captains practiced mata-nozoki, bending over to look backward between their own legs. The simple trick breaks spiritual glamour, revealing ghost vessels floating detached from the sea, riding high on the air with no displacement at all. The bitter smell of burnt firewood and wet ash drifts over the damp rail. If the dead cling to your hull, you must sweep a burning Tademisawa pole beneath the waterline to scorch their grip. Or you can look through the straw loop of a Yuguchi rope to learn the ghost's true name. Smart captains threw braided straw mats into the water to muffle the hum of the ship. The rough texture of a heavy sashiko-stitched coat scrapes against cold, numb skin. Some sailors would shout, "I am Dozaiemon," into the fog, pretending to be drowned corpses to trick the dead into leaving. Others yelled, "Give us the tow line," to shatter the phantom ship's illusion. But every single one of those tricks relied on one simple rule: that the spirits only wanted to pour the ocean into your ship. The heavy, sweet aroma of waterlogged cedar fills the back of the throat like wet dust. Every novice sailor knows the traditional defense against a standard Funayūrei. When a dripping arm reaches over the gunwale, asking for a hishaku, you hand them a ladle with a drilled-out bottom. The spirit is bound by its curse to scoop seawater, trapped forever as the ocean spills harmlessly through the open frame. The cold, hollow clatter of broken bamboo echoes across the silent deck. But when you face the dense, physical Soko-Yūrei of Nagasaki, that clever trick turns into your executioner. When the bottomless ladle fails to hold water, the trick fails, driven by an unyielding desire to replicate their drowning. The spirits do not stop. A freezing, unnatural draft sweeps across the deck, smothering the last embers in the iron brazier. The entities raise the bottomless bamboo frames away from the ocean and point them directly at the living crew. Because the ladle has no bottom, it can't hold liquid, so it shifts. It stops scooping the ocean and begins scooping the air itself. A sharp, wet, gasping sound echoes as air is drawn rapidly through hollow bamboo tubes.
tubes. The trap turns inward with terrifying precision. The bottomless ladle acts like a mechanical pump, ripping the air pressure straight out of the crew's chest cavities. It's as if the atmosphere itself forgets you exist. Your lungs expand, but there is no air left to take.
The wet, sickening pop of tearing lung tissue and bursting ocular blood vessels cuts through the silence. Your chest collapses inward under the sudden drop in pressure, snapping ribs like dry twigs. You cannot scream because there is no medium left in your windpipe to make a sound. The crew dies in seconds, suffocating in open air while looking out at a calm, dry sea. The ship drifts on, completely dry and undamaged, carrying a crew whose lungs have been flattened, completely empty. The metallic, bitter taste of fresh copper blood fills the mouth as capillaries rupture under the draft.
So if you ever find yourself drifting through the Tsushima Strait on the 16th night of Obon, and a dripping, barnacled hand reaches out from the fog, begging for a tool to bail the water, do not reach for the drilled-out ladle thinking you are clever. The last ember in the brazier snaps with a sharp, dry pop, fading into gray ash. Give them a solid cup and accept the salt water. It is far better to drown fighting the ocean than to stand on a dry deck while the dead drink the air from your chest. Keep your oars silent, traveler, and pray the tide carries you home before the mist takes notice.